Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me right here on Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It is now time for lesson 118. We have come a long way. And today let's focus on this topic, childproofing your home. Okay, so what does childproofing mean in the first case? Well, first of all, childproofing a certain area or a place means to make that area or that place a safe place for children. Because a lot of children get injured by doing things that we never expected them to do. So they say that unintentional injury is one of the top killers of children, not only in a certain country, but around the world. And prevention can almost eliminate many of these injuries. So it's very important to know what to do. Take safety measures and make your home a safe place for children. Childproof your homes. Now, you can install safety latches on cabinets, in doors, in gates, or whatever, so children won't open them and perhaps grab something like detergent and eat that because they can be very, very poisonous. Some other things you can do is keep kitchenware out of reach. Keep them up on the top cabinets, for example. What else can you do? You can protect or cover the edges, the sharp edges of counters or tables, for example, because babies or kids can run into them and bump their heads in them. What else can you do? You can install toilet covers, right, or toilet locks so that children won't open the toilet lids and fall into them. Because believe it or not, it's said that a lot of babies or infants or toddlers even, they tend to fall into the toilets. And last but not least, what I have ready for you is unplugging hair dryers or even covering electrical outlets with outlet protectors or outlet covers for your children's sake and for your children's safety. There's much more you can do, but you can check that out on your own. And for us, it's time for us to check out today's first segment, which is Actual Talk.
So Peter, before the kids actually came home from the hospital when they were born, did you childproof your home? Is that what your wife made you do?
Well, we tried to do a few things, but when they're first coming home, they can't move anyway. So
that's
you don't
true.
have to do as much.
Yeah.
But as they start to grow and, crawl, then you're in trouble.
Just before they hit the 1 year mark, right? That's what my friend said.
Well, actually, my kids were crawling, within a few months, and then by 10 months they were walking.
Oh, wow, that's fast.
Yeah, and they learned from each other, so they kind of challenge each other.
Oh, right.
Which you think, that's great, they're walking, that's wonderful. No, it means you can't catch them as well, as easily.
Everything's a hazard in the house, right?
Oh, you wouldn't believe that. And they climb.
Oh, right.
They will climb up anything.
If
they're
they
climbing up the refrigerator.
They'll just grab and pull, right? And tug at everything.
So anything within reach, they will break. So, you got to make sure you have the safe crib and the safe child seat.
And make sure they don't get their fingers caught in between the bars as well. I've seen a few cribs that were safety hazards because of that.
Yeah, a lot of cribs have been recalled because of that kind of thing. So, you got to buy all the right accoutrement. Then, electrical outlets. I don't know what it is, but they see it. They want to stick their fingers in. So you got to plug all of those. They have a thing also about pulling out plugs. So if something's plugged in and within reach, they'll go for that. So, childproofing your home, I think it's impossible.
Right.
There is no way to do that. It's great when they're young and they can't move. They're just kind of, wrapped in a towel, in a blanket and sitting there. And then once they start walking around or crawling and then walking, you realize nothing will ever childproof your home.
So you're
do as much as you can to clear things out, but it's a losing game.
So you got to keep a constant eye on them. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to watch your children. You can't leave them alone in the bathtub.
Oh,
you can't leave them alone. You got to watch.
Okay, did you enjoy today's Actual Talk conversation? I hope you did. Let's take a look at it together then. Okay, let's first of all begin by listening to what Joanne mentions. She says, Peter, before the kids meaning your children came home from the hospital when they were born, did you child-proof your home? Okay, once again, child-proof means what? To make safe against children. So, for example, if you go to a pharmacy or a drugstore and you want to get maybe painkillers, let's say a bottle of medicine, it may say child-proof medicine bottle on it, which means that the bottle is made safe against children. Okay, it is not easy for children to open it. Okay, there are certain bottles where you have to push it and then turn the lid to open it. Those bottles are child-proof medicine bottles, okay? So to child-proof once again means to make safe against children. And then she says, is that what your wife made you do? Is that what she told you to do? And then Peter says, well, we tried to do a few things. We tried to do a couple of things to make our home child-proof. But when they're first coming home, after they're born, they cannot move. They can't move. So you don't have to as much. Meaning you don't really have to child-proof your home as much when they first come home. Because they're usually wrapped in blankets. They don't really move, right? And then he says, but as they start to grow and crawl, then you're in trouble. Which means then you're in trouble. That's when you have to worry. Now, we all know grow. What is crawl? C-R-A-W-L. Babies crawl. Adults can crawl too, but usually when you say that somebody or even an animal crawls, it means that they are usually moving slowly, okay? And they're on the ground, usually with their belly on the ground, their stomach on the ground, or they're moving or crawling on their hands and feet, using their two hands and feet, okay? So babies crawl before they learn how to walk. Now, as they start to grow and crawl, that's when you have to worry. You're in trouble. Just before they hit the 1 year mark, right? That's what my friend said. Now here, we've got a pattern for you. Hit the something mark. Hit the something mark, it means to reach a certain point or a certain level. But if you say hit the mark, it means something different. It means to be correct or accurate, okay? So the difference is hit the 1 year mark. Hit the something mark means to reach that point. So in other words, just before they become a year old, just before they hit the 1 year mark, right? That's what my friend told me. That's what my friend said. He says, well, actually, my kids were crawling within a few months. Aha. So I guess they learned fast, I guess. Within a few months. So in just a couple of months, they were moving around and crawling. And then by 10 months, at about 10 months, after 10 months, since they were born, they were walking. Wow. Fast crawlers and fast walkers. Okay, and then he says, they learn from each other. They learn from each other. They're twins, so they're growing at almost the same speed. He says, so they kind of challenge each other as well. Okay, they learn from each other and they challenge each other. So Rachel says, okay, all right. Everything's a hazard in the house, right? So what is a hazard? You've heard of this a lot. Have you heard of hazardous? What does that mean? Hazardous, it means dangerous. Now, a hazard is a source of danger, okay? An unavoidable risk. So she's saying everything. Everything is a danger. Everything is a hazard in the house, right? And then he says, oh, you would not believe it. You wouldn't believe. It, I added for you. You wouldn't believe it, meaning, yes, you are absolutely right. You wouldn't believe how many things are a hazard. And they climb. They climb up anything. They were climbing up the refrigerator. Okay. I've never really raised children before, but according to Peter, children, when you first bring them home, they're nice and quiet because they don't move, and then they start to crawl, and then they start to walk, and then they start to climb things. And he was saying they were climbing up the refrigerator. And if they can't climb, if they cannot climb, then they'll just grab and pull, right? And tug at everything. So Joanna's adding some more information about what kids usually do, what little toddlers do. So if they cannot climb, what do? They will grab something. They will pull at things, and they will tug at everything. Pull and tug are very similar. But usually pull something, you're pulling something with force. Tug, T-U-G, also means to pull something with force, but usually it means to pull very quickly. You tug at something. There's even that game, tug of war. In school, your classroom may divide up into two groups, and there's a long rope you tug at, you pull at, and that game is called tug of war. You tug the rope to win. Okay? So babies grab, pull, and tug. Now, Peter says anything within reach, meaning anything they can reach, they will break. So you've got to make sure you have a safe crib and a safe child seat. Okay. We took a look at the word crib before. Crib, do you remember what it means? A crib is a child's bed, usually with 4 walls, right, to protect them from falling off the bed. Now, a child seat is what? Very simple. A seat for a child. Usually they're also called high chairs. So at the dinner table or the dining table, you may have a child seat or a high chair for them to sit on, or even a seat. Just a regular chair for children could also be called a child seat. Now, Joanne also says, and make sure they don't get their fingers caught in between the bars. That's right. So you can get your fingers caught or stuck in between bars. I've seen a few cribs that were safety hazards because of that. Now, we took a look at the word hazard, but here we have an additional word, safety hazard. It's very similar, almost the same thing. But now, in this case, it would also be a source of injury, or you can even be killed. That can be a source of something, right? Danger, unavoidable risk, injury, or even death, and you can call that a safety hazard, okay? Now, a lot of cribs have been recalled because of that. Means to be revoked, taken back. I think we often pronounce it as recall, but we'll take a look at how that word is pronounced later on. It means to take back. So a lot of the cribs that had those problems or were safety hazards were recalled. They were taken back. You've got to buy all the right accoutrements, okay? And then she says, oh, electrical outlets, plugs, for example. I don't know what it is, but they want to stick their fingers in, okay? So Peter is saying, I don't know why, but they, meaning children, they want to stick their fingers in these electrical outlets, in the plugs. They want to do it, and they do it. They also pull out. They pull out plugs, okay? So if something is plugged in and within reach, which means very close to them, at a distance they can reach, they will go for that, okay? In this case, go for. It basically means to reach for something. They'll go for it, to reach for it, okay? All right, and then let's move on, take a look at a few more sentences. Childproofing your home. I think it's impossible, meaning it's very difficult. It's great when they're young and they can't move, so it's good when they're really young and they can't move because they're wrapped in a towel, in a blanket, and they're just sitting there, right? And then he says, once they start walking around or crawling, you realize, nothing will ever childproof your home, okay? And then he moves on by saying, you do as much as you can. You do everything possible. You do as much as you can to clear things out. Okay? To clear things out basically means to make it clean. So you can clear the road, which means to move everything. You can clear the snow, which means sweep the snow to the sides of the road so that the road is clean. Okay? But you can clean things out, meaning make it clean by getting rid of things or throwing things away. So you do as much as you can to clear things out, but it's a losing game. That's another pattern of ours today. A losing game is an instance where you can't avoid. Okay, it's almost 100% a game you will lose. Okay, it's a losing game. And then Joanne says, you've got to keep a constant eye on them. Now, keep an eye on something means to keep watching. Okay, keep an eye on something or someone means to keep watching. Keep watching very closely and carefully. And then he says, yeah, you've got to watch your children. You cannot leave them alone. That's true. You always have to be with your children because you don't know what they're going to do. They can climb up refrigerators. They can pull out plugs. They could put their fingers in electrical outlets because everything could be a hazard around your house. You need to be there for them to keep them safe. All right, let's have a listen one more time.
So Peter, before the kids actually came home from the hospital when they were born, did you childproof your home? Is that what your wife made you do?
Well, we tried to do a few things, but when they're first coming home, they can't move anyway. So you don't have to do as much. But as they start to grow and, crawl, then you're in trouble.
Just before they hit the 1 year mark, right? That's what my friend said.
Well, actually, my kids were crawling, I don't know, within a few months. And then by 10 months, they were walking.
Oh, wow, that's fast.
Yeah, and they learn from each other, so they kind of challenge each other.
Oh, right.
Which you think, oh, that's great, they're walking, that's wonderful. No, it means you can't catch them as well as easily.
Everything's a hazard in the house, right?
Oh, you wouldn't believe that. And they climb.
Oh, right.
They will climb up anything.
If
they're
they
climbing up the refrigerator.
They'll just grab and pull, right? And tug at everything.
So anything within reach, they will break. So, you got to make sure you have the safe crib and the safe child seat.
And make sure they don't get their fingers caught in between the bars as well. I've seen a few cribs that were safety hazards because of that. Yeah,
a lot of cribs have been recalled because of that kind of thing. So, you got to buy all the right accoutrement. Then, electrical outlets. I don't know what it is, but they see it. They want to stick their fingers in. So you got to plug all of those. They have a thing also about pulling out plugs, so if something's plugged in and within reach, they'll go for that. So, childproofing your home, I think it's impossible.
Right.
There is no way to do that. It's great when they're young and they can't move. They're just kind of, wrapped in a towel, in a blanket and sitting there. And then once they start walking around or crawling and then walking, you realize nothing will ever childproof your home.
So
you do as much as you can to clear things out, but it's a losing game.
So you got to keep a constant eye on them. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to watch your children. You can't leave them alone in the bathtub.
Oh,
you can't leave them alone. You got to watch.
Welcome back, everyone. Are you ready for today's actual expressions? Let's go over some of the vocab words and then practice the patterns for today. Some of these words are pretty easy, so think of it as just a quick review. Childproof, today's topic. Making safe against children, right? Crawl means to crawl on your hands and your feet. Hazard is what? A risk or even a threat. It also means danger, okay? A source of risk or danger. And tug, T-U-G, some synonyms are yank or even drag. It means to pull with force, often very quickly, okay? What about recall? Recall in the verb form, stress goes on the second syllable. Recall in today's actual talk conversation meant what? to take back, okay? So to revoke, take back, cancel, or even withdraw would be the synonyms for today's recall. But recall also means to remember in some situations. So this word has several different definitions, but keep in mind, in today's actual talk conversation, it meant to take back. Okay. Now let's take a look at the first pattern. Hit the something mark. Okay. Hit the something mark means to reach a certain point or a level. Reach that point. But if you say, hit the mark, oh, you hit the mark, it means you are correct. It means to be correct or accurate. One more time, hit the something mark means to reach a point or a level. So, you can say tomorrow, the temperature is said to hit the 17 degrees Celsius mark. Here, hit the something mark, which means to reach that point. In other words, tomorrow the temperature is said to be or reach minus 17 degrees Celsius. Okay? So keep that in mind. Another way to use this is aim high and hit the mark. Aim high and hit the mark. Now, since we're talking about aiming high, you are talking about aiming high. Set your goals high and hit the mark. Succeed. Reach that goal. Now, hit the something mark means to reach a certain point or a level or reach something. Our next one is to go for something. Now, go for something. Peter mentioned something about how babies, he doesn't know why, but they just go for things, right? Go for means to reach for things in today's actual talk conversation. If I were you, I would go for the job. I'd go for the job. Think of it as reaching out for that job. I would go for it. I would do it. I would challenge myself. I would go for the job. I would try out. I would try it out. If I were you, I would go for the job. Another one. Babies tend to go for brightly colored objects. It's true. They like colors. They like bright colors, so they will go for. They will often go towards, crawl towards, or even reach for brightly colored objects. Let's try the sentence together one more time. Babies tend to go for brightly colored objects. Okay, let's try out one more. A losing game. As I mentioned, a losing game is a situation where you will not win. You're bound to lose. Putting all your money in that business is like playing a losing game. In other words, putting all your money in that business is a stupid thing to do because you're not going to win. You're going to lose all that money. Let's try it. Putting all your money in that business is like playing a losing game. A losing game, once again, is a situation where most likely you will not win. I gave it my best. I tried my best, knowing that it was a losing game. There are times when you know that you will not succeed. You know that you will not have positive results, but you do it anyway, right? So in that case, you can say, I gave it my best. I tried my best, knowing that it was a losing game. Okay, well, hopefully nothing turns out to be a losing game for you all out there. So give it all your best. That's all for today's actual expressions.